How have I not heard about this until now? Hey, what's going on, everybody? Justin here, and I'm really excited to share this video with you all. I just found out, I think this the second to last day of October here, of a readathon that for some reason has just, passed me by, and I don't know how. And it's the Climathon readathon, just all about nature and climate change and the environment, stuff like that. That's why we have a little bit of new scenery. Here's a lot of my nature section and stuff. And I guess the more practical field guides are on the other side of the room. But all my environmental and nature and animal zoology, plant books, all that kind of stuff is over here. But yeah, just found out about Climathon, and it's like I said, a readathon dedicated to learning about the environment, climate change, the climate crisis, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to give you some of the basic info here, where the host explained it a lot better. And it's 2 new channels to me, so I will definitely be checking out more of their content. Just on the fact that they're doing the Climathon is, an A+ in my book, so I don't have any doubts they're going to be good. Apparently the creator is Tasman over at the Wild Island Farm, and apparently she has a channel all about sort of living in the Azores. And remodeling, rebuilding a house and stuff. So I think that's really cool. And her co-host is Anya over at Well Traveled Books. And they came up with sort of I guess a challenge board type of thing. I guess I'll put it up there if I can get it. With a bunch of different prompts. There's 3 different teams. We've got Team Water, Team Earth, and Team Human. And each of them has 3 different challenges. And of course, I'm going to have a book for every challenge. Unfortunately, it's also nonfiction November. And I actually, when I was planning it out, I wasn't very smart and didn't carry anything over. So I really doubt I'm going to get to all 10. Doubt I'm going to get to all 5 of my nonfiction. I mean, granted, I did make my nonfiction November pile really small. If you're interested in watching that, I'll put a card up. I guess it's up there in that corner. And a link down below and all that. Climathon goes over the entire month of November, and the only real challenge is to read books on, the environment, the whole climate catastrophe, things like that. So just anything that puts a spotlight on that, that's actually probably one of the main things I read about and watch, and stuff like that. I don't watch too much TV, but it's interesting. One of the bonus challenges is to watch documentaries, and I have a few documentaries on Blu-ray over there and stuff, but there's a whole slew of them I need to get to. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get started, because I'm going to start rambling off into the distance. So I'm going to leave their links down below. Definitely check their videos out. They explain this a lot, more eloquently than I do. I'm just, a rambling mess because I got so many nature books I wanted to put in. But here we go. Let's just start with the group book. Also, before I forget, there is a Storygraph event going on, community, and I've never really used Storygraph before, so this will probably be my first foray into that app. So check me out over there, I guess, if I set up an account and join it and all that kind of cool stuff. But anyways, let's just go ahead and get started. I think I've said that 4 times now. 4 times, I think. Anyways, the group book is All We Can Save by Ayanna Johnson and Catherine Wilkinson. It looks really good. Kind of reminds me of The Story of More by Hope Jarin, which I have staring at me over on the shelf over there, but I don't know why I didn't walk over and get it. Alright, I guess I'm back. I hate editing, but sometimes you gotta do it. But anyways, All We Can Save seems to be very similar to how we got to climate change and where to go from here. Sort of all about what are some practical steps we can actually do moving forward, admitting we got a problem. I always hate having to hash all the actual scientific explanations out and everything, but sometimes you gotta do that. But admitting we got a problem, and then what are we gonna do about it? We got some actual potential solutions. Let's start trying them out, getting the ball rolling, things like that. Looks really good. Excited to read that one. All right, now for all the books, I use books that I actually already have, except for one that I asked for my birthday, but we'll get to that one in just a little bit. So the first challenge is we'll go with Team Water, I guess. Don't know why I'm look how scatterbrained because of all the nature stuff. Anyways, a book set in or at or around water. I'm going with a very on-the-nose book here. We got Song for the Blue Ocean, Encounters Along the World's Coasts and Beneath the Seas by Carl Sabina. He is becoming one of my absolute favorite nature writers. See, I've read Voyage of the Sea Turtle by him. Actually, I don't know if like if I even like angled it at the camera. It was really good. Eye of the Albatross, one of my favorites of the year so far for sure. And Becoming Wild, which I recently read, I think 2 months ago. Here, really good nature stuff. Song for the Blue Ocean is going to be all about protecting, obviously, the oceans and the marine environment. Carl Safin, if you don't know, I think he even did like a documentary series on like protecting the oceans and stuff. He's a marine oceanologist and stuff. But he does a lot of like policy work, for example, like fisheries and stuff, helping implement different countries to use, certain different kinds of hooks. He went into detail like with that on the turtle book. So you don't have as much bycatch, things like that, catching things you don't want. So I assume that book's gonna be all about, protecting different fisheries, creating environmental protected zones in the environment. I think that was his very first book as well. So it's got really good ratings. Hope to get to it. That is a big book though. I think it's like 500 pages. Anyways, next book. Set in a snowy or icy setting. I only had one book actually on all my shelves here on like a snowy setting that I haven't like already read yet. And there's a book I think my friend got me for something or other, and it's True North: Travels in Arctic Europe by Gavin Francis. He's got a really good blurb from Robert McFarlane, for those who know him as a nature writer. True North stands alongside Peter Davidson's The Idea of North and Joanna Cavanagh's The Ice Museum as a significant recent addition to the Arctic canon. So that's pretty good words coming from Robert McFarlane. I have some of his books over there. But anyways, it's kind of like a travelogue in like the Arctic areas of like, I assume like, like Norway, Iceland, probably Greenland, maybe like continental Russia and stuff. And kind of dealing with, how the local cultures are dealing with climate change in these areas, because the north is actually warming up, the Arctic regions are warming up proportionally faster than the rest of the world, which is really bad, snow caps melting, things like that, glaciers melting. So it looks really interesting. I do like travel writing, like when it's connected to like either zoology or environmental writing, stuff like that. And then the third prompt is Life in the Ocean. I got a whole slew of books coming up, of books I need to do reviews for that publishers sent me, and I'm just a terrible person. I'm going to admit that right now. But we got Future Sea: How to Rescue and Protect the World's Oceans by Deborah Wright. And this is all about implementing policy changes at like the international and nationwide levels around the world for protecting different fisheries, different like habitats, like dredging is like destroying tons of ocean floor ecosystems and stuff. And I think it was 2020, like this year and next year, there's a whole bunch of UN things kind of coming up for that. I assume this book is going to deal a lot with that. And this one is definitely a lot more like on the kind of more governmental aspects of, what are we gonna actually do to implement things to make the oceans like a healthy ecosystem for many generations to come. But sometimes you got to get into like the nuts and bolts of that sort of thing to get the ball rolling. All right, now we're gonna go on to Team Earth. So we got the first prompt is a book about plants, and I have The Arbornaut: A Life Discovering the Eighth Continent in the Trees Above Us by Meg Lohman. And this is like a biography, an autobiography, I should say, of her kind of career growing up as a woman scientist, like really like male-dominated area. But she became like one of the first arbonauts who, studies like the canopies of like different tropical trees and stuff. And she's actually like a Nat Geo explorer in residence and everything. And some of the book is going to be dealing with different experiments and different projects she's worked on in Australia, I think India, Ethiopia, different places like that. It's going to be really cool. I've read different portions of it already, so I know it's going to be excellent. And just a really good blend of, kind of like a memoir and also, actual out in the field science experimentation, which is really cool. All right, next up we have a book about animals or animal extinction. So I had a whole slew of books here. I'm going with Thor Hansen's Hurricane Lizards and Plastic Squid, the fraught and fascinating, oh my gosh, there's dust all over the book. The fraught and fascinating biology of climate change. So this is going to be all about how animals are adapting to the Anthropocene, just the climate changing world that like humans have essentially created. you know, a lot of animals either can't adapt, or I guess I should say, either they're forcing themselves to adapt essentially, or they're not and they're going extinct, or their habitat's shrinking and they're just like not coping with it. They can't handle the temperatures. Like for example, the elevator to extinction. If you are a mountaintop species and you have to basically essentially keep going higher up the mountain to kind of get to the climate that you prefer or can like survive at. And once you get to the top, there's nowhere literally left to go. But different migratory patterns are getting like disrupted from the different like sea currents. Hurricane lizards, what do you do if you're a lizard on a little tropical island? You get hit by hurricane after hurricane after hurricane, things like that. So it's going to be all about cool stuff like that. I've read a couple other Thor Hansen books, like Seeds, for example, was a really good one if you're interested in that topic. Next up is a pretty general prompt, and it's read a book on the earth, such as soil, gardening, geology, climate, fungi, things like that. This was one I kind of wanted to just pick something I knew I was really gonna love. And it's The Trees in My Forest by Bernd Heinrich, and he's probably my favorite NH author because he's a former professor who lives in a cabin in Maine for like half the year and stuff, and he does a lot of experiments and kind of scientific exploration on his own property out in the middle of nowhere, which I also live in the middle of nowhere land woods in northern Maine. So though he's in kind of more like western Maine, but still it's very similar habitat. So whenever he does like these science experiments, I'm like, I could probably like do that too. So I think it's really cool. I think I've read 3, 4, or 5 of his other books. Like Winter World was really good. The Homing Instinct was really good. A Natural at Large was tremendous. This is all going to be about dealing with his property over the course of a year, I believe. There's like 3 books that have very similar topics. It's just going to be dealing with, how he's been kind of nourishing his property, his land, and kind of different things kind of going on. From just anecdotes from some of his other books. For example, chestnut trees in the United States were like totally just decimated from the chestnut blight many decades ago. But he actually there's a few resistant strains that survived in a couple of different places. I think I can't remember if it was Michigan and like one other state. And he actually planted some on his property, and they're growing now. He has like a little chestnut orchard. I don't know, a grove of chestnuts, I guess is what you'd call it. So things like that. I think it's gonna be really interesting. I love his writing style. It's just like I said, it's just like a perfect type of thing for me. Just like, I don't know, just works really well. Just love it. And that's what I'm going with, sort of earth, cultivating his land, I guess, his property. It was kind of a little bit of a stretch, but I wanted to get him in there somehow. All right, for Team Human, we have read a book by an Indigenous author. I have Robin Wall Kimmerer. Everyone's heard of Braiding Sweetgrass at this point. And I will not stop. I don't care. I will never stop recommending it. I've already read Braiding Sweetgrass. Though I think I need to do like a slow deep dive and take notes and stuff. But I have not read her Gathering Moss, and I purposely have been like avoiding reading it just because I know it's going to be super, super awesome. And I just want to like savor it. And I was just waiting for a good time. This seemed like a good time. So we're going to be doing Gathering Moss for that prompt for an Indigenous author. Next up is a book about change. I'm going, and this is about change as in like, environmental awareness type change, trying something different so we can leave the destructive behavior behind and kind of go towards a new sort of healthier, greener way of living. I got Rebugging the Planet by Vicky Hurd. The remarkable things that insects and other invertebrates do, why we need to love them more. I've read I think about a third of the book already, and there's a lot of, the reason I'm including with change is there's a lot of practical how-to sort of little tidbits on, how to make your garden more friendly for different like pollinators, things like that, as far as like invertebrates and insects and other quote unquote bugs are concerned. And I think if everyone not everyone can have like a giant organic ecosystem garden like at their property, but if everyone did like a bunch of these like little things just to kind of like help butterflies and bumblebees and honeybees and all that kind of stuff, different beetles, whatnot, just by making their yard just a little bit more habitable rather than just a mono grass like lawn. It's just probably like the worst thing you can do. So That's why I wanted to include that one for change, because I think it's got a bunch of things like literally anyone can do if you just put in a couple minutes and a couple. I guess some of them probably take a little bit longer, a couple minutes, but an afternoon's worth of effort, you can make actually a pretty big difference, especially if everyone in your community did so at the same time. Whew. Lastly, I know I feel like this video is going to be really, really long. Last up, we got a book about consumerism or capitalism. I didn't actually have I don't have too many here on that topic exactly. But I'm going to go with Jungle, How Tropical Forests Shaped the World and Us by Patrick Roberts. This is kind of like a history. It seems to be like a history of jungles kind of throughout the different epics of Earth's history and whatnot. But I think a lot of the second half of the book is dealing with how humans have utilized jungles and rainforests and things of that nature, and sort of the exploitation from all the different things that we get, like cocoa beans for chocolate, different like palm oil plantations. Where we're cutting down the rainforest to do like palm olive. Why do I keep saying palm oil plantations, things like that? So I think it's going to be a lot about how we're exploiting and using the rainforest, and not taking care of it, and then also not doing anything to kind of like remediate. Is remediate the right word I'm looking for? I guess fix the problem. So I think that kind of fits the consumerism, capitalism. Not everyone is like, what was it? I think it's what country was it? Ecuador. I can't remember if it's Costa Rica or Ecuador that basically said like nature has essentially the same rights as like the human population and whatnot. But for example, Brazil's doing really bad right now with the new regime change in the last like year or two. You can't cut the whole rainforest down just to have like grazing for like cattle. Like this is, you know what I mean? That's just not good. So I feel like that one's a pretty good one for consumerism there, for at least probably the second half of the book. All right, I think I just went on for like an hour there. There are a couple extra challenges, like the group book, for example, watch a documentary I mentioned, and then also just posting on social media. They had like examples of like different ideas for that, and like I assume like what the hashtags are, things like that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I didn't even plug my Etsy shop where I have a bunch of nature quote signs I saw and stuff. If you want to support the channel, definitely check out that, like some items, favorite the shop, what have you, things like that. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you're going to join in on the Climathon, or you're going to read any books on like nature or the environment in the coming weeks. I'll be definitely glad to see what everyone else is reading. And whether you're reading books on the environment or not, always remember, read victoriously.